Hello. So, first things first, I have, oh my gosh, there's so many great things to talk about today. So, today is October 31st, and here in the Western world, we celebrate Halloween. So, um, my history with Halloween has been very interesting. Um, I always felt like there was something missing and it was very empty. But then again, I'm an American and I grew up in the world of Halloween candy and costumes and trick or treating. And I never really liked it because of the fact that it was so commercialized and it felt like there was something that they had taken away that just it made it feel empty. And I'm not a huge fan of things that feel empty. And so um, I, I can probably count on like both hands how many times I've actually celebrated Halloween in my life. And part of it was because my dad and stepmom got married on Halloween, and so that was their anniversary, and so it was always about their anniversary and not even about the holiday. And then when I became an adult, like, there were a few times that I went out, but it was never really something that I did a lot. And last year, I was working on Halloween, and it was pretty slow that night, and so I had a lot of time to like really just think. And I remembered some things that I had learned when I was much younger that the church had taken over Halloween many years ago to bring pagans into the church. They would take pagan holidays and turn them into Christian holidays in order to lure, I guess. Oh, that's funny. To lure people into the church. And so I knew a little bit about some of the old history, but I didn't really know very much. And so this last year has been very different for me. And I'm opening myself up to looking into the ancient ways, if you will, because I spent most of my life as a Christian / Catholic. Some people see them the same, some people don't. Anyway, and I was never really like against learning the ancient ways because I was very interested in it. And as an adult, like I went to Christian universities, and so like part of my education was to learn about world religions, and that opened up a whole new like world for me. Like I'd studied them in the past, but not in the same way. And as I began my spiritual journey away from the church, like these old things that I had learned, like the old myths and everything like that, took on a new life. And my journey actually started in the Celtic belief system. And I absolutely loved everything about it because one of the reasons why I ended up leaving the Christian faith was because I felt like it was weird that a God would, like a God of love, would require any kind of blood sacrifice. It just didn't sit well with me. Like, I'm like, it doesn't, they kind of like clash, right? And so I began to wander away from the church because I felt like there was something wrong. Too much history of fighting one another for a benevolent being. They don't even think that they really understand the word benevolence if they're raising their sword to someone else for not believing in their benevolent God. And so I started to look for ancient ways that were more benevolent. And So today I wanted to talk to you guys about what's important about today. It's not about the costumes and the candy and everything like that. And I'm not even going to bore you with like the way it transitioned from Samhain into Halloween and all of that, because there's going to be a billion videos on that today. I am sure of it. So what I actually want to talk about is the time of year mixed with the ancient messages of this time of year, as well as where we are astrologically, like right now. So I don't do a lot of videos on astrology, but I actually do quite a bit of like research into astrology. I heal by the moon and the astrological charts. Monthly, I go through and I look at if there's something retrograde, if what exactly the moon phase is, like not the moon phase, but like where the moon is in the constellations and in the astrology, and what is it that the moon is amplifying in our lives at that time. And so today, specifically, I wanted to look at three things. Where's the moon? Where's the sun? And what's in retrograde? Because these are really important. Because if we look at the actual time of year it is, this is the most important time for us to recognize the natural order of life and existence, okay? So it's not just life, but existence itself. And we draw this from the zodiac itself. So when we're looking at the soul journey, not necessarily the life journey, this is existence, right? This is from the first spark until the absolute return. And then out again, and then back again, like the endless cycle. And I don't want to say it's like endless as in like, it's always going to be the same. It's not. It's every single time is different. And so if you look at where you are in the zodiac on your birth chart, like you're like legit, like straight out, like everything, you can read it like your history. And once you realize that the astrology is not there to predict your future, but there to show you the way to healing and to soul evolution, then it takes on a completely different life. It's no longer like, well, who's going to be the love of my life? Because, that doesn't really, when it's time, it's time. And if, I say this all the time, if you're reaching for something, it's going to get further away. Don't chase it. It'll unfold naturally. That's exactly what this is about, right? Life and existence unfolding naturally. Okay? There's a natural order to everything. And when we're here in Samhain, this is what we're supposed to be looking at, okay? This is the time of year when we go into introspection. There's a reason for that, okay? So let's talk about the cycle of the year and life as it pertains to you, like we're talking about your garden, okay? So we all know that I believe it said zodiacal, I'm not 100%, but the calendar year starts in January, but when we're looking at like the cycle of life, it actually begins in spring. Spring is renewal, right? It's the beginning. So I could talk about the other holidays that celebrate these things, but I'm not going to worry about that. So when we start into spring, a lot of the times, because it's so cold outside, or in some places the ground's still frozen, we begin our starts or our shoots or our seeds inside, utilizing the burgeoning sun as it begins to start to return to its full strength and length of time during the day. Okay, so as the sun starts to return, our things that we have been planting start to grow, right? So this is spring, and spring is all about growth and renewal and being patient and expecting rainy days, because you need those rainy days to help your plants, right? So in the springtime, this is all about new life growing, and all of the things that we have been carefully taken care of in the past is now starting to show the work we have put into it. And the more work we put into it, the better our plants do, right? And then we get into summer. And summer is when life is at its fullest. Okay? Everything is fun, exciting, it's warm, the sun is out for long periods of time. When it rains, it's warm. When there's storms, it's beautiful. Everything about summer is just life. Okay? And then as we come into fall, right about now, especially if you're like in a place where there's lots of trees already blooming into the beautiful like reds and golds and yellows of the fall, like this is a gorgeous time of year. But it's also the time of year when we realize this is necessary, right? So the tree knows that the sun will not be around as much in the winter. And so it goes into introspection mode, and it releases that which it cannot maintain in order to maintain its own life through the winter. Now, it goes even further than that, because if you see all of these leaves fall, and in the forest, we know that no one goes there and rakes the leaves up, okay? But now these leaves are covering the ground, creating a nice blanket to keep all of the roots warm. And a lot of the times there are things that happen underneath of those leaves that are even more amazing, like the creation of the mushrooms. And the mushrooms are absolutely wonderful. They are the way that the earth takes what is old and creates new life, even when there isn't a lot of sun. Okay? So if we look at that which we release as not just that which we release, but that which we can till under, we are not only feeding and blanketing our own soul and our own growth through the winter. For any of you who know anything about farming, you know that the snow is actually really amazing for the soil. When it sits on the soil and it actually sits there for a long period of time, it ends up creating things in that soil that makes that soil even more rich for spring. So when we till it under, like when you go by all of the cornfields and they're tilling under all of the stalks that are left, that's food for the soil for next year. We don't have to waste that which we get rid of. As a matter of fact, this is why we have introspection, because when we release it, we look back at it and we're like, okay, was that something that helped me, or was it something that hindered me? If it's something that hindered me, what about that can I till under to let it fertilize for next year so that I can change that into a new seed, a new sprout, a new blossom, a new me. So this is exactly why this time of year is so important, because the next few months, it gets dark. And when it gets dark, think about seasonal affective disorder. How many people are affected by depression in winter? I would love to talk about this right now, okay? I am one of those people who has for many, many years experienced a very dark lull from around about October 19th until January 1st. And for many, many years, this was a hard time for me. But this year and last year, I didn't see it as depression. As a matter of fact, I don't remember who I heard this from, but it was the most amazing thing I ever heard in my life. It isn't depression, it's compression. When the sky goes dark and we come inside and we end up snuggling up in our little bed and we sit there in our little cocoon, that's exactly what it is. We are being forged. The pressure of that which we feel is creating in us a diamond. If we allow this time to be a time of introspection and don't allow it to be a time of sadness, but of renewal of spirit, this turns depression into the greatest thing that could ever possibly happen to you. Solitude that allows you to feel and recalibrate that which is going on in your life, which is exactly why we're going to talk about what's in retrograde, because retrograde pretty much means, dude, go inward, especially Mercury retrograde. Oh my gosh, guys, we all know that when Mercury is in retrograde, there's a lot of communication issues, right? Okay, maybe that's because it's time to shh. This is necessary. Because as you get new downloads coming in, sometimes it's a little chaotic because things aren't linear, right? So when things come up, sometimes they're just little sparks. And you got to chase the little dots all around to figure out exactly where you're supposed to be. My light went on. I should have probably had it plugged in. Anyway, so there are some exciting things that are in retrograde right now. And one of the most important things that I want to talk about is exactly this. Okay, so Saturn. So if we look at Saturnic energy, a lot of the times, I always think of like the Devil card in the Tarot. Okay, but that's a little bit limiting. Okay, so when we look at Saturn is like, okay, just think about the Devil energy card. What do you think about when you think about the Devil energy card? Like a lot of the times people are like addiction or something that has a hold of you, something that's just got you, that you are stuck in some kind of default mode because of that thing. Like if it's an addiction, you know it is. You're like, I don't want to do this, but then you go and do it because you're like, I don't have any control over this. Okay, so think about that, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't even have to be like a substance. It can be anything that takes you away from being in your center. Anything, okay? So Saturn is there to tell us, hey, remember your responsibilities. And I had the most amazing thought process about this the other day, and it was all because of reading a poem written 100 years ago. And it's called Litany to Satan, and it's written by James Elroy, I believe is his name. I'd have to look it up. But it's basically a supplication. And the supplication is like, please just release us from our pain. But really, this is extremely important because everything he's talking about in this particular poem, he's talking about like, you hold the key to our release. But that's not necessarily true, okay? So the Saturnic energy, the Satan energy, the Devil card, whatever you want to say, okay? He's going to keep giving you exactly what you want. Because he's the gatekeeper. He's not there to keep you trapped. He's there to say, are you ready to get out of your own trap? Because the second you say, oh, you have no power over me, he has no power over you. Why? Because you passed the test of remembering your responsibility. Are you being responsible? That's exactly what it's about. Look at the zodiac. If you look at it like from the start to the end, what do you get? You go from being absolutely wild and out of control to having absolute balance in your life and having the ability to flip that switch when it's necessary. Okay? This is what we're doing in our existence. We're learning how to be a wild, uncontrolled entity. I'm thinking of like chaos in its rawest form, absolute potential, no direction, right? That's exactly what chaos is. It's not bad, it's just absolute potential without any control. And you go from being chaos or a particle within chaos, and you learn how to have control of self. Basically, you have to remember, oh, wait, I'm conscious. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then you rapidly go through this process of awakening and remembering, oh, I've done this before based on your zodiac, right? If you look at your zodiac as the age of your soul, it's not always the case. Sometimes it's literally there's a particular lesson you need within that zodiac that shows like it depends on like the degrees and everything like that. Like breaking it down like is I don't want to say it's complicated, but it's a science. It really is. And I don't care what anybody says about that. It is a science, and it looks to me like a healing science, which is exactly why I've been drawn to it. So, therapy didn't work. Let's go to astrology. That's so funny. Oh, man. Okay. So again, we are looking right now at a Saturn Pisces retrograde. Okay, so let's talk about that really quick. Okay, so when we're talking about this, we're talking about looking at our boundaries, our disciplines, spiritual and non-spiritual, karmic lessons, and then reflecting on your responsibilities, your maturity, and your emotional limits. This is all super important. So I did a video just a couple of days ago about sovereignty. It's called Sovereignty Unraveled. If you want to watch it, it's fabulous. It explains very clearly, like, what is a boundary and why does it matter? So we have to talk about this because we're talking about what's in retrograde right now. So when you create boundaries, the first person to create a boundary with is you. Can't expect other people to follow boundaries you yourself do not hold yourself bound to. There you go. Okay, so when we learn how to set boundaries, we set those internal boundaries first. And it's not, I won't accept this. No, I won't do this. I won't do that. If I won't do it, I don't expect that to be done around me. That is a boundary. You have to set your own moral limitations. What is it that you are responsible for and will not cross that line? Okay? This is exactly why we're going inward. It's not about them. Not about them at all. If you aren't willing to respect yourself, you can't expect someone else to respect you. Did I say respect twice? Expect. I don't know. So now, looking at that, okay, am I holding myself to a standard? Okay, cool. That's awesome. Is that standard legit? Or are you like trying to perfectionist it? This is the difference. Like, it's all about balance. You can't have excess on either end, okay? If you are striving super duper 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 hard and seeing no results, are you grasping and chasing? Or are you allowing yourself to unfold naturally into that position? Sometimes what we want, we're not ready for. I can definitely look back, hindsight 2020, and be like, oh yeah, I would not have been ready for that. I would not have been ready for that. thank you for not giving me that which I was not ready for. Okay? When we allow it to unfold naturally, we see, especially if we're following the moon charts, okay? We see exactly what is laid out step by step in front of us, okay? It's not about using astrology to predict your future. It's about using astrology to predict, what do I need to heal next month? But we don't need to worry about next month right now. We're just worried about this month, because this month and this moment is the only thing that matters. Remembering to draw yourself back is how you remember how to have balance. And when you start to remember that balance is what you need, you start to crave it in your life. And that's when your boundaries become a hard no, because you are respecting them within. For everybody else, because if you don't like it, what's the likelihood somebody else doesn't like it? Right? That's the point. I can't sit there and say, I'm going to respect you when you say no, and then not respect me when I say no. I'm not going to say no to you if I don't allow you to tell me no. It's not equal give and receive. Okay? So, when we are being introspective, we're not just looking at other people around us. We're looking at ourselves. What have I done this year? This would be a perfect journaling project to do for today. What has unfolded in my life in the last year, since last fall? What has unfolded in my life in the last year? Is it something that I want to keep? Is it something I want to tweak? Is it something that I want to transform? Or is it something I just want to release? And be honest with you. You're the only one that knows here what you need. Okay? So the next thing that we have in retrograde is Uranus and Gemini. And this is going, this is ongoing, by the way. This is stuff that's been happening for a while. Uranus and Gemini, we're looking at innovation, communication, and freedom, which is like the perfect time for this. Oh my gosh. So the rebel spirit is very vibrant right now. Okay. But I want to remind you what that rebel spirit is. This is the internal rebellion, the rebellion against your rigidity, because life isn't about rigid beliefs, because every single day something changes. Every single day. And if you're holding on to something that defined you 5 years ago, are you evolving? Can you honestly look at something you felt, thought, and believed 5 years ago and say that it hasn't changed a tiniest bit in 5 years? If it hasn't, maybe you should revisit that. Look at it with fresh eyes, not necessarily critical, but fresh eyes. A lot's changed in just 5 years. Imagine how much has changed in 25 years. Because I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and a lot has changed in 25 years. It's even more that has changed in 35. Just think about what life was like 35 years ago. We don't even have half the things we had back then. They're completely obsolete, like an answering machine, cassette tapes, I had to explain what a mixtape was to my kids the other day, and I told them, I said the only way to be able to listen to music was on the radio or if you had the album. That was it. They're like, what? So if you look at just how different life is, how could you possibly hold beliefs you held 35 years ago without reanalyzing them from fresh eyes? This is something we should do yearly. That's exactly what winter is for. Winter is for us to fertilize our soil. That blanket of darkness, that blanket of snow, that blanket of leaves, they're insulation. Electrifying. I don't know why, but it is. It's electrifying. All right, so okay, so we're looking at innovating older ideas. And this is something that I absolutely love to do, like looking at the past and looking at things that we do now and like kind of like making an amalgamation of the two. And which is exactly what I do when I do this stuff about astrology and ancient traditions and psychology and all of that stuff. It's my favorite thing to do. So the last one we have is Neptune in Pisces, and we are looking at redreaming, reimagining, and retreating. So what are we doing? We're getting rid of the illusions. We are getting rid of that which has held us in I want to say mesmer is coming to mind. So we have been mesmerized. Oh, that reminds me of a very old story. Okay, so basically what we're doing right now is realizing that, and this comes from, I believe, the ancient Greeks, we're all in a cave. And there is a light shining around us, but we're shielded in the shadow. And all we can see is the light that's around us and the shadows that are in that light. Okay, so we are actually watching a show of shadows, not the actual reality of what's going on. And if you've ever made shadow puppets, you know that shadows aren't necessarily representation of truth. So right now we're awakening to the fact that, oh, those are just shadow puppets. What's going on? What's really truly happening? But there's a rock behind us and we can't see what's behind us. And there's a wall in front of us, so we can't see what's in front of us. That's why we go inward. And the second most important thing that we need to talk about when it comes to Samhain is the recognition of your ancestors. And that's exactly what, this is what we're looking at, guys. This is the time of year when according to the older beliefs, like when the darkness comes, so do the shadows. So now is the time to connect to your guides, your ancestors, the ones that you love that have passed on, whatever it is, whoever it is, on the other side, okay? This is when we talk to them, we ask them, hey, what kind of shadows am I going to face over the next few months? What is your advice? What is your guidance? Stay with me, help me, meditate. Use these resources, because if it's truly of the light, it won't interfere in your life unless you ask. Because natural law, the divine law, you cannot interfere with the evolution. Prime directive. Sorry, I'm totally a Star Trek fan. So you cannot interfere with the evolution of another being. because that's their choice. That's their path. That's their plan. And I'm not saying leave everyone behind and just focus on you, but I'm kind of saying leave everyone behind and focus on you. I mean, it's okay to be open to those who are open to you. But if you start to have a conversation with someone and their eyes glass over and you know they don't know what you're talking about, don't take it personally. Take it within. Okay? So, realize today's not just about costumes and candy, although they did believe that putting on costumes would ward off malevolent spirits. And they would go door to door doing like funny sketches to, keep away the malevolent spirits. So, you have the power. What was it? Is that G.I. Joe, the American hero? You have the power to maintain distance from those shadows. But remember, if they come to you, there's a reason. There's something you need to face. And if it's something that causes you pain, the best thing for you is to face that pain so it can't cause you pain anymore. So I hope you have a wonderful retrograde season and introspection season, and that your soil next spring will be the blackest of the black soils, rich and ready to bloom. Have a great day.